Welcome to Learning to Fly with Nikki, Batgirl, D'Angelo, and this is episode 2. So, I have found that this game has its own little bits and pieces and puzzles in it that make me stand here and say I'm a little bit confused. I'm confused at the way that they're training people to fly, and maybe this is how people are learning to fly today, who knows? But I don't see anything that lets you pretty much, well, let's just say you don't have enough training to actually get into what flying really is. And it sends you off on your own to do flight time, solo flight time over at your own airport, but they've never taught you navigation and they've never taught you departure or approach to landing stalls. So that kind of is a little bit of a issue to me, but maybe this is a sim that's training how to fly in a simulation world. Let's get on to the next mission, which is going to be, or next lesson, which is going to be turns to heading. All right, let's get there, and it'll just be a brief transition to start that one up. All right, in this first mission, he's going to give us a few directions on how to turn to heading. Now, audio wasn't captured here, so we have some issues, okay? And those issues pretty much are that you're not going to hear what he was telling me. Now, if you watch, he hands over the plane, and the plane's not trimmed. And that's pretty much because I'm using analog controls, and that would be a digital trim, right? So I had to sit there, and I had to play with the trim for a little bit to get this one mission done. So I'm just going to skip ahead just a tiny bit. So essentially, he hands off the plane to you and teaches you how to do well, he doesn't even teach you how to do the turns to a heading. If you're with an instructor in real life, you're going to have the instructor take the controls, do a turn to the left, do a turn to the right, and explaining to you how to roll out and when to roll out. Like roll out 15 degrees before, 30 degrees before, whatever it may be. Here he goes, all right, you got the plane, start your turn. And to me, that was a very abrupt introduction to a turn. Now, I know how to turn, and I'm still learning this simulator. As you can see, my altitude is creeping up. I'm already almost 200 feet above the 2,000 feet that he has given me. But I'm turning and rolling out on just about 270 degrees. It's actually about 268 degrees. So then he tells me to turn to the right. And I'm turning to the right, and I am going to roll out at a heading of 090 degrees. Now you can see my nose dropping. That's not good. You can see my airspeed has gone up to 100. I should have failed this one, and I did not. So where the first time I did this, I felt that it was very strict and very demanding of me to get a certain altitude, a certain airspeed, and there wasn't enough explanation of why and how and what for. There's flashing my my altimeter, telling me I have to hold my altimeter. Here he is telling me I have to go to 090. And that was pretty much it. That was, oh, good, you've actually completed this, and you're done. All right, I'm done. Let's go to the next one. Here is the last mission before you actually go and get your light pilot's license checkout. Now, there's going to be some other things you have to do before you can get your check ride, but this is approach and landing. And essentially what he's doing is he's doing pattern work with you, but he's doing it from the position that you're on a downwind leg. I have a problem with this. He taught you how to take off. He taught you how to ascend and descend. He taught you how to turn to a heading. And he's done many different things here, right? How to maintain an airspeed, how to trim the aircraft. Those things are done. But here he is teaching you how to approach and land. But he's not teaching you the actual pattern work, which is something that you should be doing to practice this part, which is to take off and then run the pattern 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Do touch and goes, do full stop landings, and that's not being done in the simulation. And that's something that I think diminishes the actual benefit or diminishes the actual effectiveness of this as a true flight school for simulators, simulation fans, for entering simulation fans, whatever it might be. I think that this lesson should have been pattern work, and it should have been takeoff, crosswind, downwind, base, and final. I think that should have been what he did, and it should have been 1 to a touch and go and 1 to a landing. And I think that in this position, he should have also flown one leg himself and then had you do both. My guess is they're, again, playing to today's gamer, which has no patience, but simulation fans have a lot more patience than a gamer does. So this, I feel, was a fail, but I think that still, for someone entering in, maybe that's what they want. He also doesn't explain turning from base to final very well. He says to watch the runway, and when it's perpendicular to the horizon, that's when you turn. That's not when you want to turn. You want to turn so when you come out of your turn, it's perpendicular to the horizon, or this is what happens. You overshoot the runway. So I should have turned base earlier, but stupid me. I didn't do a million landings already. I started listening to him. This is the first time I am landing this simulation aircraft, and I believe that the flight model might not be correct. I don't remember when I flew in the PA-18 3 or 4 times. I'm sure that I was in it, and I did multiple landings that it descended and it didn't flare as well. I mean, this doesn't flare as well as the real one does. In fact, the real one floated a little bit on approach, and this one is kind of falling like a brick. So I'm kind of a little bit concerned with that. But nonetheless, like I said, it's a simulator, and he's teaching it. And here I am trying to pull out. Look at the airspeed. Oh my God. We would have broken the landing gear on that landing. Should have failed it. Nonetheless, he gives me the 0.03 hours. Ugh, that was horrible. All right, let's go to the next part, which is going to be my first free flight. All right, that mission is over, or I should say that lesson is over. And now I still have the light aircraft pilot license locked. It's my job to go and get 3 hours of solo time. So we are going to go do that now. For this free flight, I'm going to fly from my home base, and it's going to be from RYY, which is Cobb McCollum, up to Cartersville, which is VPC. And of course, there's a K before those because it's USA, and that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to pick this up in flight. I will go back and forth between in-flight commentary and my actual post-commentary at the same time. And of course, this instructor has not taught us any of the etiquette, any of the communications that you need to fly. Essentially, this is not flight school for people that want to learn how to fly in real life. This is flight school for people that want to learn how to fly in a simulator. So we didn't even taxi from the ramp, which I'm sure in realism settings we could have done that. I'm checking the flaps. Before this, I was checking the different systems like I would always do in an aircraft before I go up. And I'm going to roll. And what we're going to do is we're going down runway 090, so runway 9 at Cobb McCollum. We're going to take off, and then after reaching an altitude of 2,500, is that what we want? 2,500? I think so. I think 2,500, which will put us about 1,500 feet above the ground, I think. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to fly up towards Cartersville. We're going to do a touch and go, which I inadvertently told the flight plan the wrong thing. I essentially told the flight plan I wanted to do a full stop instead of a touch and go. I'm not sure if you could do that in this particular game, but that's what I did. So this isn't the actual scenery. I wonder if you can add scenery packs, but I do find a little bit later on that there are some landmarks that are very important in this particular sim. Specifically, I'm doing a VFR flight plan, even though I bring up the GPS at times. But when you're approaching Cartersville in VFR, what you want to do is you want to look for the coal power plant towers in the distance, and then Cartersville VPC will be just south of there. So that's exactly how I find it. So I continue to just about 2,500 feet. If I was doing this flight myself, I'd be on flight following, and I would probably be flying at an altitude that was given to me by the tower or by departure. So we are going to be flying up to Cartersville, which is going to be 2 hour, well, we're going to try to get back on our easterly heading, but it's going to be over to the north, which is this way. And it's going to be more or less mostly west, so it's going to be northwest. I think it's west by northwest. That would be exactly where it is, if I remember correctly. And I know that I got a little bit turned around in this one because it's been a while since I flew up there. And once I got my bearings, it was pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip ahead at this point to almost the approach over at Cartersville. The road over to our left, just off our nose, that's Route 75. So Cartersville is going to be west of that, and we're going to start looking for the towers. That's what you would do. There's also a small airport that you pass before you get there. It's a grass strip. I forget the name. Now, Cartersville is a place I've flown into often. They fly some pretty fast jets out of there, mostly because it has a FBO or service called Phoenix Aviation there that is, well, they're contracted by the U.S. government, and they wind up pulling tow drones or tow targets for different Navy, Marine, and Air Force fighters in the area. I think they take off from where we are and fly to the different training grounds and off of the coasts, whether it be in the Gulf or be off the Atlantic. And that's about all I know about them. The reason why I made this flight often is because I was in Civil Air Patrol here in Georgia. And that would mean that I can actually take a flight up there, land and come back, maybe take some cadets on an orientation flight, go and pick up some parts for maintenance, fly different members back and forth, and be able to have it be a official flight, and thus I would only be responsible for gasoline, and sometimes not even that. So here I am flying this flight. Of course, there is a Garmin unit somewhere in the aircraft, and we're just taking a look at it to make sure that we are on course. And then I realize over in the upper right, just above the strut, the right-hand strut, you could start to see the smokestacks. Once I see that, I know that we are on course. So we are going to turn off the GPS, and we're going to go back to Visual Flight Rules, VFR. The lake that's around us here is called Lake Allatoona. It's a man-made lake. Pretty cool. I don't live too far from it, actually, and have lived a lot closer to it at times since I've been in Georgia. The ride up to Cartersville isn't that long from McCollum. It actually is just about 10 or 15 miles, so it's not that far by car. And I'm talking about to the city. To the airport, I think it's about a 20-mile run. Just about. So we're starting to see the smokestacks getting bigger in front of us, and we're going to be able to start seeing the airport in just a little bit. If we keep on flying in this direction, we should be fine. I love this route because I get to see all the different beautiful lakes and scenery over here. As you go further north in Georgia, it's just a lot of green and a lot of mountains and a lot of nothing. Most of my flight training was done on Long Island, and there was so much to see. I'd go out to Montauk and Orient Point. I'd land over at Suffolk County Airport, which used to be Grubeski Air Force Base. It's still the home of the 106th Air Rescue and Recovery Squadron, which is a squadron that's tasked with sometimes being on call for the space shuttle launches, which don't launch anymore, so I could only imagine that they'd be on call for the Orion launches when that happens. But they pretty much take care of all the air-sea rescues for the Air Force, and that's over the North Atlantic. So everywhere between the U.S. coastline and Iceland is all theirs. I think the Brits take the other side. Not sure about that, but I think that's what they do. I actually flew with them a couple of times, and they are just amazing people. I was in the U.S. Naval Reserves for a while. Yes, I was in the Navy. I was in the Marines. Long story. We'll talk about that another time. But we had nowhere to drill. We were originally going to drill at the Brooklyn Navy Yard and then at Staten Island. But both of those places were kind of canceled in the forced drawdowns in the late 1980s, early 1990s. So we were a unit without a home. Our home base was in Amityville, but it was just a building, and we would just sit there and do correspondence courses and have lots of different types of training, but nothing really significant. And then one day, a Delta captain who was in our group got us hooked up with his Air Reserve unit, and they got him hooked up with the 106th Air Rescue Recovery Squadron, and then that was it. For a couple of summers, we actually, or I should say for a couple of years, we actually did a lot of work with them. I actually got to fly in the helicopters too, which was so awesome. But those C-130s were just amazing. Coming up, we have the airport right in front of us. It's hard to see. It's just over the nose. Just trying to go around and take a look at the aircraft. Oh my God, it looks so much better when I render it than when I'm watching it live and doing this commentary. So I'm going to try to pick up on a right-hand pattern, a right base. Actually, I think I'm going to try to enter crosswind and then go into the downwind leg and then turn onto base and final. I'm not sure, and I should have looked, if Cartersville was a right-hand or left-hand traffic pattern. Very important to know. You don't want to crash into anyone. It is a Unicom, though. There is no tower there, so you would want to, right about now, say Piper 285 Victor, 5 miles south, inbound for touch and go. We are going to land on a runway which I think is going to be 360, runway 36 or runway 0, take your pick. Not 100% sure if that's exactly which one it is. If it is, that means there's almost always a crosswind there. You figure I've done it so many times I would remember it, but I didn't fly in Georgia nearly a tenth as much as I did in Long Island. So even though I made a bunch of flights, I made tons more up in the New York area. So you can see the airport in between the in between the window frame and the strut now. Just below, well, not just below, but below the smokestacks to the north. We are getting closer. And I'd say that we're probably just a little bit low for pattern altitude. I will have to check altitudes of these airports at some point. Getting closer. And sound is off, folks. I do apologize for that. For some reason, the in-game sound did not want to cooperate this time. I will fix it for the next mission. Next mission. Go figure. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take us through the landing here. Then I'm just going to go from the takeoff in the touch and go on this, get to altitude, and then I'm going to fast forward to the landing over at McCollum. I did make 2 landings at McCollum. I decided to do a touch and go around and come back and land again, but I really have to do some work with this aircraft and figure out how she handles in slow flight. seem to remember this plane being a lot more forgiving than it's being inside of this sim. We're getting closer. We are low. We are very low. We probably needed to be somewhere up around... Oh, God. I think about 1,600 feet. That might have been it. I'm going to have to see the altitude of the ground as we pull in. At this point, I was looking for the windsock to see if anything changed. And the windsock did not present itself well. It's right over the center of the field, so I could have gone there. And although that looks like a nuclear power plant ahead, it is a clean coal burning plant. Part of the Southern Company or Georgia Power. Okay, and we are entering a crosswind leg. And we will turn downwind in just a second. Okie dokie, 190, and that would make it 350. 350 is the runway that we're landing on. I bet you landing on 19 would have been better. Well, today it would have been. The wind seems to be coming from the south today. So we're going to start our downwind leg. Going to make sure that we're at 2100, maintain 90 knots. Maintain pattern altitude here. I'm putting us at 2,100 feet. Thinking that the pattern, that the altitude of the... Thinking that the altitude of the runway is about 1,000. So I gave myself 1,100 just in case. Alright, so we've turned. And we are headed just about south. Come on. 190 degrees. No problem. 190. We're there. 190. Okay. Everything looks good. There are some landmarks over here I'd be looking for in real life. But, there's subdivisions and different buildings that are in this direction going to be in this general scenery. Autogen scenery. Though the elevations do look pretty accurate. Alright, so we can chalk back the power. We do look a little low, though. I swear we are definitely going to have to look at this. So we've already had one bad landing, and this is going to be another bad landing. Okay, we're going to start our turn. And this time, whoa. I don't know what happened there. I remember that now. And I was a little bit concerned with the way that aircraft shook as I turned. And I started to wonder if this aircraft ahead of me was coming in on a straight in. Again, it's something that needs to be added to the sim is radio comms, and that's not something that's in there yet. I'm wondering if that comes in at a later time. So we're just about at 23 minutes in this video. I apologize for it being long today, but this is my first flight, and we do have to get 3 hours of flight time. Ugh, that's going to be tough. All right, we're rolling in, and it looks like we're about perfect for a base onto a final. We're definitely not perfect. Ooh, there's another plane up there. Alright, so a little high. We just have to add a couple notches of flaps. My view is off, as you can see. So I'm probably trying to overcompensate when I'm not realizing that my view is off. Alright, so my view is a little bit better now, but still. Alright, we are way low. It looks like we're going to land on the threshold. Let's add a little bit of throttle, bring it back up to about 1,500. Alright, we're good. Descending at 500 feet a minute. Not bad. Alright. Pull that back. Add some throttle. Add some throttle. Pull back. Pull back. Pull back. Nikki, pull back. Pull back. Pull back. There we go. Ooh, 500. We slammed it down. All right, we're going to clean up the aircraft, and we're going to push full throttle. And you always push throttle slowly. You don't want it to choke. and we're going to let it come back up again. So that was our flight out to VPC. Now we're going to turn it around and take it back to RYY, Cobb McCollum Airport, and I'm going to join this up just as we're entering our pattern. So we've moved over to the approach and the pattern entry and approach and landing over at Cobb McCollum. So I decided to come in and enter the pattern on base. Again, as I'm coming in, I notice that there's an aircraft ahead of me, and without ATC in this game working at this point, I don't know what his intentions are, but my guess would be I'm on base, he's not, so maybe the AI is smart enough to know to divert him around. That's the prayer, anyway. Alright, so we are a little bit, we're going to be on a long final, and we're a little bit low for a long final. So this might be a little bit of a botched approach, and you're going to see that in my, not a go-around, but what I do is a touch and go, because I'm just trying to get this aircraft, get a handle on this aircraft. I hope the Cherokee, I've flown the Cherokee Warrior quite a number of times, and the Cherokee Archer I flew a couple of times. Even a Seneca I flew, like, Saratoga. Even the Saratoga I flew in and flew at least 1 or 2 times. But this PA-18, just the flight model just seems a little off. Alright, so I overshot the runway just a tiny bit. My view is wrong again. I gotta get that view center button up. But we seem to be alright, so we have full flaps out. And if I just let this descend at 55, I should land just about on the threshold. So I want to add a little bit more power, and I don't do it. I should have added a little bit more power over here. We are descending at 750 feet a minute, which is bad. We want to back off on that and take us back up to about 500. Alright. If you notice, the nose is pointed right at that second arrow over there. Now that first arrow, and that's about where we're going to land if we don't do something about it. Right now I should have added a little bit of throttle to get us back up over 500 feet a minute. My guess is the realism settings that I turned on are off. So we're bleeding off some of that airspeed at this point, which is not good because we're going to wind up stalling and crashing into the ground. Alright, so let's see if we can pull this up a little bit. It's just not. I mean, I'm flabbergasted. The actual flight model, I'm going to have to go flying up Piper Super Cub again to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I can't for the life remember if that's exactly what it was. If when you went into the flare, it just hit the ground. You saw that. When I flared, it hit even more vertical speed. Vertical speed went up. So I'm going to do a right-hand traffic pattern here, because I believe it's right hand on runway 9 and left hand on runway 27. Actually, it might be left on 9 and right on 27 to keep you north of Dobbins. I'm not 100% sure if that matters. Alright. I'm going to have to what? No, I think 27 is a left hand, and I think it's a right hand for 9. Is it? My God, I can't think. I'm going to have to look in my airport guide. Hit AOPA's website and figure it out. So we are going to fly the pattern, and we have turned on downwind, and we are going to set this baby down, and then we're going to go lock her up, and we're going to log our hours. Alright, we are just about midway. Yep, we're at the midpoint of the runway right about now because it's passing our window frame. Okay. Or at least that would be it if it was the Super Cub that I flew over at Islip. Okay, a little bit. Alright, a little bit more. And we are a beam of the numbers. We're going to chalk back to 1400 RPM. Alright, chalk back. There we go, chalking back to 1400 RPM. And we're going to look for our... And you know what? I'm not going to find it here. I was going to say I'm going to look for my visual aid, my landmark that I use to turn base. And it's not going to be modeled in the game. So we're going to turn base. And we're maintaining that 50 knots. We're maintaining that 500 feet per second. Okay, that's fine. Let's keep turning. We were a little bit close in, so we should be able to turn on to final, and I turned too soon. We are on a short final and coming out of a turn, so we're going to have to watch stall. We're at 50 knots, and this one I feel a little bit better about. A little bit better about. Not a lot better, but a little bit. Alrighty, let's have our nose almost on the runway. This time the view is right. Well, almost right. The view is not totally right yet, but it's almost right. We're still not looking straight out of the cockpit like we should be, but much better than the last two times. Alright, so we're coming in. And just about at the threshold. I do have full... And it's just dropping like a rock. It is dropping like a rock. Look at it. Look at it. 250, and it slams down. I am not liking the flight model in this thing. I wonder if that's what it is. I'm going to have to go get in a Super Cub and X-Plane and see what the flight model is there and see if it's any different. Because if I'm wrong, I will apologize. Well, folks, let's end this flight and this agony. In the end, I go and I run over to where I would park the aircraft for Civil Air Patrol, which is over to the left of the tower by far. It's the first set of hangars that are at Cobb McCollum. They're on the western side of the field. Let's end this and move on to the closure. Well, that was quite a lot for one day. I'm sorry to keep you on for about 35 minutes on this flight. We took the plane through quite a number of things. We did approaches, we did turn to headings, and then we did a short flight between Cobb McCollum and Cartersville, which was VPC, I believe. And we got back, and that seems to be something that you're going to have to do a lot of in this because it's clocking real-world time. So I'm not 100% behind this sim yet. It's not training you in certain things like radio work, getting the weather, how to fly in crosswinds. I'm hoping that's all in the second part. We will see. And I hope that it will get better. I really am. Nonetheless, I am having fun at this. And I will continue to do this series. And if you like it, please make sure you click a thumbs up. If you have any suggestions or can find RYY on a map and want me to fly to any specific airport, please give, and I'll put it into the comment section below. And with that said, folks, you all be safe out there, and I will talk to you soon.